Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be the start of a new series that I plan to pursue on the making called In Defense, where essentially we defend either someone or something. And what other great way we have to start this series off by defending the controversial yet easy to prove case of Kyle Rittenhouse. By easy to prove, I'm referring to his innocence, because there is no doubt, no question, that 3 terrorists have chased after Kyle Rittenhouse in an attempt to kill him. Not only are we going to defend Kyle Rittenhouse in terms of the conspicuous conduct of self-defense, we are also going to evaluate every single other argument made against Kyle Rittenhouse. Through the fact that he had a gun at the age of 17, below the standard legal age of possessing a weapon, and the conduct of protecting a private property by the use of that gun. Notice that I did say fact. Yes, it did happen, that is true, but we are still going to address how and why these arguments are still misleading. This isn't even mentioning the whole systematic racism fallacious argument that I will address later in this video, probably in the end of the video. Now with that, all that being said, let's gradually dismantle every single lie said regarding in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse. So I will play the link of the shooting of Kyle Rittenhouse straight in the link in the description below, because I'm not going to play it throughout the video since, YouTube's policies. So the number one premise that I want to tackle down is the whole lie that Kyle Rittenhouse was out on a shooting and murder spree. Not only is this an indication of a lack of judgment, but there is absolutely no substantial evidence that proves whatsoever that Kyle Rittenhouse had intent. Here in the mind, premeditation murder that shows that he was going to kill those people in the first place. Therefore, this dismisses a first-degree murder charge. So, now that I got my cup of tea, let's begin by let's narrate the story. So it starts off with Kyle Rittenhouse defending private property with an AR-15. If I recall, that's what the weapon was called. Anyways, that's not the most important part. But he starts off by defending private property, and this is where syllogism comes in. And I say that because the major premise is the morality of Kyle Rittenhouse's conduct, plus the minor premise that because Kyle Rittenhouse is defending private property that was not his, underlining his immorality. Honestly, this is the best way how to fail at syllogizing an argument. There isn't morally wrong with defending private property that isn't yours whatsoever. That's like saying, by that logic, that's like saying that a white person is immoral because he's protesting about Black Lives Matter, when the issue of Black Lives Matter doesn't concern anything whatsoever about that white person. You can defend private property even if it's not yours, just like you can protest even if the matter doesn't concern you. I think I deserve a sip for that. Today's sponsor is green tea. You should buy it. Tastes good. That's all I'm gonna say. Now that we took care of the minor premise, let's get to the major premise. The overall morality of Kyle Rittenhouse regarding the shooting. So, if you need to see the video and the link in the description before we tackle this down, go for it. But if not, let's continue. Now the narrative fallacy I want to address is just hilarious, is when you go to every single mainstream media like CNN, except maybe Fox News, you'll see like titles such as shooting into a crowd, when he only shot 3 people. One of them was a guy with a gun, justifiable via deadly force. Second was a guy with a skateboard who was hitting him with a skateboard, in which you can still kill somebody with a skateboard, for Christ's sake. 3, it was the guy who was trying to take his AR-15. Not only that, it wasn't just those 3 people, he had an entire mob chasing after him. What would you do if the only self-defense weapon that you had was a gun, and you have an entire mob chasing after you? You wouldn't even think twice or once about using that gun? And when you have 3 of these frequencies, you can have an infinite amount of different hypotheticals that could happen within this situation. One hypothetical, an instance you can have is the guy who was trying to take Kyle's AR-15. He could have restrained him, could have embargoed him, grabbed him, chokehold him, or anything of the sort, to where the other 2 people could have beaten him to death. The guy with the gun could have shot him, or worse, potentially, the mob chasing after him would have all crowded in and just, you know the rest. Therefore, it's really not that hard to argue, not just argue, but not that hard to conspicuously see that this shooting was just a last resort. And another issue with the whole shooting into the crowd narrative is that notice throughout every single video showing Kyle Rittenhouse, we never see him purposefully shoot anyone within the crowd, except when he's being attacked, except that wasn't purposeful, premeditated in any shape or form. It was the mob who were purposefully trying to attack Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the basic story. If he truly did wanted to hurt people, then why did he bring a med kit saying he was out to help people while he was defending private property? Not only that, but wasn't he also a libertarian who supported people's rights to destroy, riot, and public property? Just not private property, property that he was defending. Now sure, maybe you can argue that what he tactically did was wrong, but in moral and legal context, that's completely irrelevant. There's also testimony from the guy who was going to kill Kyle with the gun, who stated that he regret being hesitant on killing Kyle with that gun, meaning that Kyle shot in last resort, and if he did not shoot, you know what happens. What about the guy with the skateboard? You know, all he had was a skateboard, right? Doesn't matter. You can still kill somebody with a skateboard if you hit someone hard enough with it. And just because that you have something that's seemingly less lethal doesn't dismiss the fact that Kyle's life was still in danger, as they still could have restrained him, giving them enough time for the mob to come in to kill him. Meaning that, again, and I'm only going to say this one more time, he shot in, essential term, last resort. Not only did the three instigators left the situation from killing Kyle after Kyle had shot, that also persuaded the mob to leave the premise as well. So now, based on this deduction, we can now say that and conclude that shooting in self-defense with that AR-15 was the only way to save Kyle's life. Maybe he could have tactically been smarter in the situation. Maybe he could have aimed better with the gun, but we're talking in realistic terms. What would happen if you were in the situation? You wouldn't have enough time to think in that situation when you're about to be vastly injured or possibly killed. But overall, I will say though that it would have been a lot smarter if Kyle Rittenhouse had not been there in the situation overall, period. However, the context to charge him with the homicide charge, every legal context, every moral context is just ridiculous. But tactically, I will give him the constructive criticism. Now that we dismantle this entire syllogism, there's another argument that I want to get to. And that's the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse was underage and should not have held that weapon. And the question of why the police officers did not question his age. The reason why police officers did not question his age initially is because the situation took place in Wisconsin, an open carry state area. Now, to those of you guys who do not know what an open carry state is legally, lawfully, let me present you something. Now that we know what an open carry state means, Kyle Rittenhouse was also under the age of 18, a 17-year-old carrying a weapon where he was not supposed to. However, there is legal contextual evidence that does support that 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds are allowed to carry rifles, weapons, for the sole purpose of hunting, and that even lawyers, legal experts have also argued that this particular case of Kyle Rittenhouse, this law, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds can carry rifles, weapons for hunting, that this particular context law could actually be applied here in this case. But how can it, may you ask? Well, this is infallibly a case of self-defense. So, arguably speaking in legal terms, this could apply in this case, although it is hard to argue in court. So, if you would want to punish Kyle Rittenhouse, like if you're an SJW who is looking for a punishment for Kyle Rittenhouse, the best I can see reasonably would be a Class A misdemeanor charge. So the question of whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse deserves the Class A misdemeanor charge is up for debate. So let me know in the comments whether you guys think that Kyle Rittenhouse should be charged with this Class A misdemeanor charge. But what do I think? I personally think that the rule of law that 16, 17-year-olds are allowed to use rifles in case of hunting is poorly drafted and can be used ambiguously in cases such as these. Given Kyle Rittenhouse's circumstances, it would be nice to find success in the acquittal of this Class A misdemeanor charge, but the only way to do so that I see would successfully happen is if you have any proof whatsoever that indicates that Kyle Rittenhouse was initially going to be hunting. If there is proof of that, then please let me know, because I'm not actually aware of it. And one last thing before I end this video off and get to my conclusion. This is not a race issue. The reason people even say this is due to the false equivalency with this case that we're discussing between Jacob Blake's case. Jacob Blake was the one that instigated the situation initially, giving the reason for the cops to defend themselves. You can't really compare these two cases. And plus, if you really do truly want to argue a case of race, such as the police not shooting Kyle when he had that gun, you're gonna have to argue that those cops present in the situation was the same cop dealing with Jacob Blake's case, and proving that he is an actual racist. But given the fact that these are two separate police officers, two separate human beings, it really is a false equivalency. The only way you can even clean up this disjunctive reasoning of a mess is if you actually prove that the policing system is actually racist, which there's no evidence of. And if there is evidence of, then type it in the comments. In conclusion, Kyle Rittenhouse initially shot in self-defense. A homicide murder charge. Murder of any charge is ridiculous. A Class A misdemeanor charge would be the only reasonable extent that I can see possibly happening in this case. And this is not an issue of race. There, I said it. Goodbye now. One last thing before I finish up this video officially. And yes, I have changed clothes and it is dark outside, but that's because I'm filming this clip like several hours later. This is unscripted, but several hours later while I was procrastinating from editing this video. But this is my last message. My last message is, if you genuinely enjoy this video and you want to see more content like this, like in defense videos of that sorts, please leave a like in this video. It helps a lot. It helps let me know that when you leave a like in this video, it lets me know, it sends the message that you want to see more content like this. So in order for you to send the message coherently, please leave a like in this video. It'll do wonders, trust me. Thank you.